This is the longest sleeper train journey across Canada that you've never heard of. 5 days riding east through the dense coastal rainforests of the Pacific Northwest and into the fall colors of the Canadian Rockies and over the vast expanses of the Golden Plains of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. This is part 2 of a 3,000 kilometer journey where, quite frankly, a lot went wrong. It's slow, it's delayed. From Canada's wettest city in Prince Rupert to one of the coldest in Winnipeg. This video is sponsored by Canada Rail Vacations. Let's begin. Last week, I started this trip in Prince Rupert, the western terminus of Canada's second transcontinental railway, and day one was perfect. It was gorgeous weather leaving the Rainbow City, running past the Seven Sisters Peak, and into our halfway stop of Smithers. And as the sun would begin to set, really emphasizing the concentration of fall colors, into Prince George for our overnight stop. Now day 2, things changed. Out was the sunny Toy Story cloud skies, and in came the cool wet mists of the BC interior. But we would see some bears about halfway through the trip, which was pretty cool, and after that we would continue eastward before arriving into the northern Canadian Rockies of Jasper right on time. And this is where we pick things up today. I had 2 days in Jasper before my connecting train would pull into the station. And if you have never been to Jasper before, this seriously is not a bad problem to have. This is Jasper, a quiet mountain town tucked into the valley between the Myatt mountain ranges, with a year-round population of around 4,000, which is probably quite a bit smaller today since the wildfire that burnt 30% of the town less than 2 summers ago. But Jasper is a lot calmer than Banff. The mountains, I would say they feel a lot less on top of you, and personally, I like it that way. And there is nowhere in Canada where you will see as much wildlife almost anywhere you go as here. From bighorn sheep to mule deer, caribou, and even corgis. Alright, the corgi was a paid actor and is not a native species, but you get the point. Although I have still never seen a moose or a mountain goat with my own 2 eyes, being here in the fall, there is literally wildlife everywhere at every corner. Easy. Easy, girl. I don't want no smoke. I don't want no smoke. Come on. But whether you're driving here down Highway 16 or taking the train in, Jasper is probably my favorite national park in Canada, considering how overcrowded with foreigners Banff has become. And no, speakerphone is not the default setting. Put the phone up to your face or just wait like everybody else to take the call so we can all enjoy the scenery in peace, because if you know, you know. But from the top of town, right here is the Red Pass, which is where my train came in through yesterday. And you can see this little freight train passing along right here and making its way into the town site. And the station that my train will arrive at is right here on the edge of town. But just outside of the yard and over the river is the Jasper Park Lodge, which is the town's railway hotel, opened in 1922, burnt down and rebuilt again in 1952. And whether you stay here in winter or summer, it's super peaceful, especially their outdoor hot tub. I mean, when I stayed here last year, there was snow everywhere, and with the sun shining down, being in that warm pool, it doesn't get any more magical. But you could also head down the road from the lodge about 20 minutes to Maligne Lake and do the boat cruise to Spirit Island. And Spirit Island is also that signature shot that you'll see most companies use to promote Jasper. The following morning, I was treated to an amazing sunrise over the Rockies, absolutely lighting up Pyramid Mountain. And my train was scheduled to arrive for 10 a.m., but it was 5 hours late. With the downtime, you could walk across the street and grab a sticky bun or a famous white chocolate raspberry scone from the Lost Lands Cafe, and I highly recommend both. But the real treat is right across the street. Outside the station sits Canadian National 6015, a mammoth of a machine that has rested here since 1972. And this is important because in 1959, Canada's largest steam locomotive, CN 6060, was retired and placed on a siding in Winnipeg, awaiting to be scrapped. That was until engineer Harry Holmes saw her and would buy the engine from CN for $1 in 1962, and she was then moved to his hometown right here in Jasper to be put on display, as you see here. Now, a decade later, CN would select 6060 to be restored to pull steam excursions out of Montreal, and in her place is where 6015 would reside to this day. 6060 would be retired again in 1980, and in early 1986, the province of Alberta would fund her full restoration, done by Harry Holm himself, to run to Vancouver in time for Steam Expo at Expo 86. Unfortunately, the funding to maintain her would be cut in 1992, but in an attempt to stop her from being scrapped or sold down to the US altogether, Harry would form the Rocky Mountain Rail Society to keep her north of the border. 1998 would see her running again on the Alberta Prairie Railway in Stettler, Alberta. That was until 2011 due to some mechanical issues. And although she would see some progress over the years, when Harry passed in 2020, it marked the turning point for the future of 6060 to today, where she is still awaiting her final repairs. Now, I did ride the Alberta Prairie Railway this summer, and at the very end, I got the lucky opportunity to see 6060 up close and personal. And believe me when I say that this footage I'm showing you does not do it justice. She is truly an absolute monster. I mean, I am 6'5", and I look tiny compared to these massive driver wheels and the subsequent pistons. I mean, this was a mountain-class locomotive, but with Union Pacific restoring the big boy down in the US as a giant marketing tool, and the Canadian Pacific following suit with the Empress 2816, I thought that would light a bit of a fire under CN to bring 6060 back to life, but as things sit presently, that doesn't seem likely. But I did do my part and bought a membership over the summer to try to help with that restoration process, and I will put a link in the video description if that interests you as well.
Such a sad state, but it really underlines the fact that in Canada, it feels to me anyway, like we're taught to hate our history, to throw it out, to, in a lot of cases, scrap it and forget about it. And I hope that this video and all the series that I've done to date have inspired and kind of brought a lot of that history back to life, because when you have a moving giant like this that has sat here for over half a century, not pulling passengers like she was designed to do, that built a country, that built a nation, I find that very sad, and sadly kind of sums up I guess the state of Canada, to put it very nicely, but we need more stuff like this. It's a real shame in Canada.
Now, shifting from past to present, our 10 a.m. sleeper train would trickle into town roughly around 3 p.m. And with passenger trains in Canada, you got to embrace the good with the bad, because I did get a very rare opportunity to witness the meeting of both the west and eastbound Canadian in the Jasper Heritage Station at the exact same time. Something not a lot of people get to say they've seen. And following a quick resurfacing, refuel, and engineer change, right around 4 p.m., we would board.
I mean, this is the Rolls-Royce of Canada. There is no better way to travel than right here on the VRL, specifically in the dome car.
And at 4:30 sharp, we would pull out of Jasper, gliding out of the northern Rockies amidst the peak of the fall colors, heading for the capital of Alberta later tonight. Jasper to Winnipeg is the second half of Canada's second transcontinental railway, which was completed in April of 1914 by the Grand Trunk Pacific. And while the Canadian Pacific route to the south, now used only by the Rocky Mountaineer, is significantly more dramatic, with steeper peaks and much tighter valleys, the route out of Jasper is a lot more peaceful. The valleys are wider, and the mountains are more spread out. And as far as value for your ticket price goes, this northern route passes through 120 miles of the Canadian Rockies, while the Canadian Pacific to the south only go through it for 50 miles. And like I mentioned last week in part 1, life is all about perspective. I'm not in a hurry, I'm just trying to get there and enjoy my time in between. And rain or shine, especially when you get to ride through the fall colors like this, which I've never seen like this before. And as we pass along the park gates, we will curve around the scenic sweeping edges of Brule Lake, marking our official exit out of the northern Rockies and towards the foothills and the intense fall colors of the Alberta prairies. Right about now, we are coming through the town site of Hinton, and this is the site of the deadliest train crash in Canadian history, where on February 8th of 1986, a VRL passenger train collided head-on with a CN freight train, killing 25 and injuring 70. Now, rail traffic safety would change forever after that, and the goal of this isn't to spook you because the trains are very safe, but this is a very important historical moment in the history of trains in Canada. And on a more positive note, these fall colors got super intense out of Hinton, and I think this liquid sunshine adds a little bit of an eerie vibe to it that I'm really into. And you couple that with the all-you-can-drink hot coffee and tea for all sleeper passengers on board, and the fact that I'm watching the longest Canadian passenger train that I've ever seen, at over 20 cars long, where I think there's just something magical and so special about these 70-year-old Bud cars and the stainless steel taking these corners, stretching out. I don't know, I think this is exactly what turned me into a train lover the way I am today. If you've never seen any of my videos before, I love trains on a level that I just can't quite describe. It's the greatest way to travel in comfortable seats like this. Just relax, sit back and watch the world go by, see pieces of Canada, see pieces of scenery that you just can't see any other way. There's no better way to take it, and I hope that by the end of this video, I'll inspire you to take the train or come up with some type of train journey or train adventure that you do yourself, because this is an experience that everybody needs to do at least one time in their lifetime, especially throughout Canada. And as the sun would set, it meant first call for dinner, and considering that I have been surviving off of nuts and berries for the past 2 days in the Skeena, a dining car was much overdue. Dinner here begins with a hot bread roll with soup or salad if that's your thing, and tonight's main was beef tenderloin, cooked rare just the way I like it, with a creamy béarnaise sauce, chef's choice vegetables, and mashed potatoes. And dessert tonight was their signature chocolate cake, which I actually think is just a giant brownie in cake shape, but it is so rich and it is perfectly paired with a black coffee. And although you could try their strawberry shortcake as the other option, personally, I think it's absolutely wild to consider that all of this food comes out of this tiny kitchen. From their prime rib, which will come up tomorrow night, or their warm apple crisp a la mode served with cold vanilla ice cream, it doesn't get any better than this. And considering that you are dining in what I would describe as an ever-evolving postcard of Canadian landscapes, it is truly one of my favorite restaurants in the entire country. And following your food coma, because you will never leave hungry, I promise you that, for bedtime, let me give you a quick comprehensive tour of the sleepers and showers. Each sleeping car has a public shower on board, and it may shock you, but the water actually gets pretty hot or cold if you're into that, and has great pressure. And Via also provides you with soap and towels, which is great. Now, for sleeping accommodations, I love the berths. They're seats during the day, and basically convert to bunk beds at night. They're cozy, they're comfy, and I got just enough space to spoon a couple of pillows to sleep. I mean, I'm a big guy, but call me biased. There is no better way to experience Canada than like this. And with that, I was off to bed. This morning, I got up probably around 5:30. There's something I love so much about sunrises, and I wanted to catch this one from start to finish. And although this is my 15th time taking the Canadian, I don't think I've ever seen anybody up here this early for sunrise. Just me and the cotton candy skies here outside of Unity, Saskatchewan, which is just east of the Alberta border. But as the sun would begin to crest over the horizon, here, shining that golden light over the golden prairie fields, signaling the start to my last day on board as we roll towards Saskatoon. This is Saskatoon Station, located about 10 kilometers outside of the downtown city center. Opened in 1966, the station today is kind of cute, and with no shortage of sun blasting in through the windows on this gorgeous fall morning here at the end of September. But we are still a few hours behind schedule, so this was a very quick 30-minute refuel and engineer swap before the all-aboard call would come. We reboard, and immediately mesmerized by this old school 1990s VRL passenger car sitting here at the back of the yards. I think this might be used for some type of executives or luxury excursion. If you know, leave a comment down below because I would love to know more about it. But after that, we rolled out of the Qu'Appelle yards and snaking towards the South Saskatchewan River. And as we cross over the river, you see that chimney off there in the background? Well, that there is the Bessborough, Saskatoon's Grand Railway Hotel, a gorgeous chateau-style hotel built by the Canadian National Railway in 1928. And I recently took my dad here for a bit of a father-son trip. Now, the Bess is hands down one of my favorite railway hotels in the country, and it was Canadian National's answer to the Canadian Pacific opening the Hotel Saskatchewan in Regina in 1926. And the Hotel Sask was constructed from the abandoned structure of the Grand Trunk Pacific's Chateau Qu'Appelle, one of the 5 Grand Trunk Pacific hotels that would never come to life prior to their bankruptcy. And trust me, although this is my 15th time on the train, there is no shortage of history and stories to find along the way as we depart the City of Bridges. The rest of the afternoon, we'd spend crossing over the prairies. We'd pass by countless farms, with no shortage of farmers out there hard at work at the end of their season. And every couple hours, we'd cross through a small town, which was a little bit of a change to see some buildings, before hitting back up to top speed. I think I find this part of the trip so relaxing, and maybe it's because I was born in Manitoba and the flat prairies feel like home, but the dome is almost completely empty through the entire prairie portion, which is quite the contrast after being completely packed through the Rockies. I mean, I just love the prairies. I love the simplicity of the landscapes. It's relaxing, and especially when the most interesting things start to become the central grain elevators that become framed by the tracks behind us. By late afternoon, we'd roll into Melville, which is our last official stop of the day.
Alrighty.
Melville is named after the man that made this entire video possible, Charles Melville Hayes, the Grand Trunk Pacific president, whose vision willed this entire route and transcontinental railway into existence. From the most scenic route in the country to 8 of the most luxurious railway hotels in the world, and although only 3 stand today, with the Chateau Laurier in Ottawa, the Fort Garry in Winnipeg, and the Hotel Macdonald in Edmonton, Hayes' legacy is absolutely undeniable. And although Canadian history loves tearing down its pioneers as of late, Hayes was an absolute patriot and a Canadian hero that, in my opinion anyway, does not get talked about enough. Today, Melville has a population of around 5,000 people, and this beautiful original station has been closed for over 30 years, which is actually longer than I've been alive. But the rumor has it that the city does have plans to turn it into a cafe, and come on, a nice hot latte from a century-old train station, well, I think it would be a hit. About half an hour out of Melville, the scenery shifts dramatically from the flat plains of Saskatchewan to the rolling Assiniboine River Valley. And this stretch along the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border truly never gets enough appreciation, but it's my personal favorite part of the entire route, as the scenery opens up to expose the wide valleys and the rolling hills that sit within it. And we're still about 4 hours behind schedule, so yes, this will get me to Winnipeg well past my intended bedtime. This is actually perfect, because the fall colors cast across these farms and the prairie fields, with that golden hour sunset lighting all over it, is going to make for a seriously dramatic ending that I get to share with you. The Assiniboine River Valley will flow into the Qu'Appelle Valley, and the train goes through it as we cross into Uno, Manitoba, where we will reach the climax of this trip, the Uno Trestle. This trestle rises 115 feet above the Assiniboine River below and stretching over 1,500 feet across the valley above. Constructed in 1907, only a few years later, in September of 1915, a tornado ripped through the area and completely took down the trestle. However, the Grand Trunk Pacific would rebuild it in only 22 days, which was the fastest project of its time, before a few years later, swapping out the wood piles for the steel frame, which is the format that you will see here today. And as the Canadian crosses over it, in my opinion anyway, there is no better way to showcase the beauty of Canada and why you need to experience it by train than right here, the most scenic sleeper train across Canada that you have never heard of, from Prince Rupert to Winnipeg. Within the hour, the sun would begin to set and light up the sky for that gorgeous red hue along the horizon. And as the grain elevators would begin to turn into dark silhouettes off in the distance, as we make our final descent for the city that I was born in, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and into Winnipeg Union Station, as the city lights off in the distance lead the way.
right, that is it. 5 days, the most scenic train journey in Canada, Prince Rupert to Winnipeg. Complete at the historic Winnipeg Union Station.
And there you have it, 112 hours from the rainbow city of Prince Rupert to one of Canada's coldest here in Winnipeg. And if you're planning your next train trip, you should definitely check out today's video sponsor, CanadaRail.ca. Whether you're looking to take the Rocky Mountaineer from the Southern Rockies in Banff, or out of Jasper to Vancouver, or here in Winnipeg, or any other custom itinerary across the country, Canada Rail Vacations build your dream trip by train across Canada. And I'll put a link in the video description to learn more about CanadaRail.ca. They've helped me out quite a bit with my trip planning to date, and I know they can help you too. I want to know, have you ever taken the train from Prince Rupert? Have you ever been to the Canadian, or have a story to share? Whatever it is, leave a comment down below because I would love to hear it. And hit the subscribe button for more patriotically Canadian videos just like this, because next week I'm spending 2 nights in Montreal's castle, the Queen Elizabeth, the final railway hotel constructed in Canada, and Montreal's most luxurious in the heart of the city today. From stunning sunrises over Mount Royal, to a world-class floating Nordic spa in the Old Port, or any of the other hidden gems sprinkled across the city, before I head out and board the Ocean, Canada's longest running train, across the Maritimes, to the edge of the Atlantic in Halifax, Nova Scotia, through the gorgeous fall colors. All that and more coming up next week. I want to say thank you so much to you for watching, and I'll see you next week in Montreal.